Greetings! I'm back. Some of you didn't think I would be. I just took a little break. Had to get myself caught up in my life. I also had to get myself grounded. If you recall the end of my Halloween, 30 Days of Halloween videos, we had some issues with the fires going on around here and local fires and the resulting evacuation of my daughter. Of course, she was back in her house by the end of the month. You know that. And then we had quite a bit of stress for the election. I'm not going to talk about politics, but it caused me a lot of stress and worry. I needed to get myself grounded again before I came back and started talking to you, making some videos, and I have some tarot readings to do for people that I wanted to take. I had to take that time off to make sure I was okay, that I was grounded and in a good place in order to read tarot. So I'm back. Those of you who have been waiting for tarot readings, if I already have you in my queue, don't worry, it's coming immediately. You'll be getting them immediately. If I don't have you in the queue and you've been waiting to get in, you can simply shoot me an email and tell me what kind of a reading you would request. And if you don't see one on the website, and I will quote your price, how much it will cost, and then you can just go directly into PayPal and pay it in there. I'm going to be making some changes to the website. I have some updating to do, which is causing me some problems. I mentioned it before with some of my PayPal buttons, just on the buttons. PayPal still works fine, but it's the connection, which I have to do some kind of technical thing to get that to work properly. And that's just going to take a little time. I have to take my, I have to go off the internet for a while to get that to happen. So I've been putting it off. It's going to come, but in the meantime, you're still accessible. Anything that I have in my shop, if you're not sure of, to just go ahead and contact me, and I'll let you know how we can get it all paid for and ordered, etc. Anyway, this is not about that today. I'm going to answer. I have a two-part series here, just two parts. Answering questions that were raised particularly during the 30 days of Halloween. Some of these questions have come up in a couple forms before this, and it was my hope, my sincere hope, that I was going to be able to answer questions individually during the, in a more timely fashion during the actual period of Halloween videos, but it just was eating up too much of my time. I wasn't able to do that. So I apologize for that. But most of the questions that we're dealing with are not particular questions to Halloween, so that's good to know. And I have divided them up into two parts, basically two parts. Today's I've got 10 questions that I will answer, and I'll put I don't know, I might hopefully put a timestamp on them, so if you just are looking for a certain question, you can go to the answer. But I'm just giving quick answers today. I'm not going to give anything too detailed, so if I don't get to that, you'll just have to find it. I'm sorry. But anyway, I have 10 questions, and today I have grouped them accordingly to sort of subject matter. So today I'm going to be talking about a little bit about questions pertaining to doing spell work, but also just general. These are just general witchery questions, maybe having to do with they're just general questions. They're not anything too specific in an area. The next video, that part 2, will have more to do with what's part 2? Part 2 is going to have to do with tinctures, questions on tinctures, tonics, and kitchen witchery kind of questions. So, but this is just general witchery here today. All right, I've got 10 questions. I'm going to just do my best. Just general, give you some general answers. And where it is feasible, I'll give you a link to a video that I've already shot on that subject, and where or it could be, some of these things are videos that are coming up that I have in my planning, on my planning list coming up. So I'll let you know when we get to them individually. The first question had to do with the videos. I did 2 videos. One was on magical powders, and that's where I made the black salt and the cascarilla powder. Another one was on magical water, where we talked about the different kinds of waters. And I will provide links down below to both of those videos. They weren't that long ago. They were pretty recent. But I think, but they can maybe give you a little more information. But one of the ones, when we want to talk about, somebody asked me particularly about using storm water that had obsidian in it. And if you recall, those of you who recall, when we were talking about the magical waters, we talked about the different uses for different kinds of water. Of course, you can use water for however you see fit. But particularly they were asking about storm water, water collected during a storm. And when we talk about that kind of water, we're talking about water that is used. It's very good water to use for spells or rituals, spells particularly. It has a lot of strength. Think about the storm. Storm water is different than just rainwater. When we think of rainwater, just gentle showers, it has a different personality, doesn't it, than storm water, which is very, very strong and to the point. And it's often, and it's accompanied usually by thunder and lightning or strong winds or something like similar. So there's a lot of strength. There's a lot of force. So that's very good for cursing. It's very good if you want to put a hex, use it for hex or some kind of a really strong spell. Now, when you're using it with the combination with obsidian, that's actually a really good choice. And I'm sorry I didn't write down your name who asked me this particular question, because it was an excellent choice, and I love to see that you may have already have a kind of combination, that you use a combination anyway, because obsidian is really, really good for any kind of hexes or banishing, whether you want to give a hex or remove a hex, or you want to banish somebody, or you want to bind somebody, or something, or some behavior. It's very good for that, okay? But obsidian, when we're talking about obsidian particularly, we're talking about a protection, usually giving a protection against any negative things. Those kind of strong spells or strong manifestations you're looking for, they open the door for all kinds of things, all kinds of problems, right? We know that, so that's why we have to go and protect ourselves. Protection is an absolute must when you're doing that kind of witch spell work. You have to protect yourself, and nothing gives you better protection, really, than obsidian. Now, if you're a woman, snowflake obsidian is supposed to be even more effective for women, but some people do not resonate with snowflake obsidian. I remember I showed you snowflake obsidian before. Here's a big hunk of it I have here, which is, it's black, but it has like a gray or grayish white, really pale gray, and kind of dots, There's a little piece that you can see that they're even lighter. Maybe you can see that they're lighter in color. I wear it on my bracelets, the black stones. Here I have a bracelet on the top here. Take it off. I wear a lot. This is something I wear a lot. Maybe the light's not too good in here, I hope so. But it's just rose quartz. And then I have, in between each rose quartz, I have a snowflake obsidian bead. And then I have some in the front, the snowflake obsidian. I include snowflake obsidian on a lot of my bracelets, because I want to pull some kind of energy in. I also want to protect myself at the same time. So anyway, bottom line, obsidian and snowflake, and obsidian and storm water is very, very good combination. People asked about the cascarilla powder. Remember the powder we made from eggshells? And I showed you how to make it. But I also mentioned that I will be selling it. And I will be selling both the cascarilla powder and the black salt, which is black salt in packages, these small packages, the same as I do. These are the same size I offer my incense blends for special for the aspects, for full moon, new moon. In this size, in this little size. I have a bigger size that are the other blends, but this is a smaller size. But it goes a long way. This stuff goes a long way. You can use it alone, or you can use it in things like your chalk, your magical chalk, or other things. But I'm selling the same price, $4.25 for this size. Now I said, it's really easy to make yourself. You can make it. But I think for people particularly who do not have access to maybe eggs that they know were made under good circumstances, maybe from organic hens in organic fashion. You can buy this stuff really, really cheap, but what are you buying? If you don't spend enough money, remember there's a lot of chickens that never even see the outside, or never even come out of a cage, never even get to put their feet on the ground. How magical are the eggs coming from those chickens? I always wonder. So we know this is coming from good hens. So if you don't have access, but a lot of you are in areas where there are people just like me who have chickens, and see if any of them are selling eggs, or any of you could have eggshells from some of them. Unfortunately, maybe for you, a lot of people who have chickens save the eggshells and do the same as we do and feed the eggshells back to the chickens for calcium. But I can spare a little bit, and I'm happy to spare a little bit if I need to. So I do have that in my shop. Okay, so the question was also asked if the membrane inside the shell, it's a problem when you're going to make the cascarilla powder. Do you need to remove that? I would say it depends on how you're going to process your eggshell. It's not harming anybody. It's not harmful. It won't take away any magic from your powder. But if you're going to just use a mortar and pestle or a rolling pin or something to crush your eggshell, you might have difficulty because that membrane is there. So in that case, I would want to remove it. But if you're going to put it in a little spice grinder like I do to get a real fine powder, the membrane, it doesn't hurt anything. It can go in there too. I do both. I mean, if it's there, if it's attached to the shell, I put it in. If it's not attached to the shell, I don't put it in. It's just preference, that's all. Okay, number 2. I had a lot of questions about historical names for herbs. We were really interested in that when we made the little jars, the little magical jars that we had. I don't know what we put on the jars, I don't remember. But I do know, I can tell you one. when I put daughter in a jar, right? Instead of putting daughter, I might have put devil's hair, I think, on the jar. What I want to tell you is this: if you're interested in finding an historical name, a name that remember that was passed on through folklore, like you hear, we heard in Macbeth with the speech from the 3 witches when they said, I have newt to a frog, etc. We said that they were probably referring to very common herbs or spices, but they weren't giving away their secrets, right? They were calling it by their magical name for the herb or whatever. I would say if you're wishing to do that, you need to Google that. You need to go on the Google and you need to just put in the term historical name for herbs. There are so many. You're going to get so many hits. There's so many. The reason there are so many is because depending what group, where you are, what area, what region, what kind of people, you're going to get different names. Now let me give you an example of that. I used daughter, okay, and I think when I made the jar, I said devil's hair. I might have at one point, when I was talking to you about daughter in the first place, and using daughter in our poppets for maybe binding spells or not magic. We were talking about not magic, I think, at the time. And I was talking about daughter being called devil's shoestrings. And as a matter of fact, there's quite a few folk ballads that refer to witches putting curses on people by tying knots in their shoestrings. Or in their, some kind of strings, their hair, tie knots, or tying knots in their the linen, the linen on their bedding or whatever, their sashes. Making a jar for Halloween using devil's hair seemed more appropriate, and maybe devil's shoestrings made more appropriation if I was using it for something in a puppet, for instance. So what I want to say to you is this is a really good project for your Book of Shadows. If you want to make a Book of Shadows and you want to use certain herbs, if you want to say instead of mugwort, then I would research mugwort, historical name for mugwort, and see what name resonates for you. Because it doesn't work. If you're going to just use a name that you copy down that sounded kind of cool, if you can't remember what it is, it's not going to do you much good when you go to use the herb or whatever it is in your spell or whatever you're using it for. So it needs to resonate with you some way. And that's a really good way to get to know your herb and get to know the properties and remember the properties of all these herbs or stones or whatever. Okay. For instance, we use tiger's eye in a stone. Why is tiger's eye? How did it get the name tiger's eye? Think about it. Think about it. And I would look that up if I were you, if you're curious, and see what properties. Here's another one I have. This is bumblebee jasper. It's called a bumblebee. It's a really cute little stone. Bumblebee jasper. And this is a high energy stone. And it's really good for, stimulating your energy levels. Think of a bumblebee. Think of a bumblebee. Buzzing around the garden, going from one flower to another flower, another flower. Very good. It's very positive, right? Okay. So think about where things get their names and use the names in your magic. And that's a really good way to enhance your magic. Okay. So whatever my answer is, I could give you a big long list, but my names and your names might not mean the same thing to you. So, and you don't need a bunch of names of things you're not going to use. I don't think. Do you? I don't think you do. Okay. Enough of that. Number 3 are the answers that we get from a pendulum. Just happen to have one. Coming from the spirits or from your higher self. This question came out of the video that I did on when I was talking about the Ouija board, whether we should use the Ouija board to communicate with the spirits, I believe. And we were talking about the history of the Ouija. And then we also talked about what they have done a lot of studies on the Ouija board to see if they really work. Are they really, what's making that plectrum move around the board? Is somebody doing it or is it just happening? Are the spirits moving it or are we moving it? And I think we said the scientists have said that there's such a thing called an ideomotor effect, which are unconscious motor movements that we make. We don't even know we're making them. That maybe cause the plectrum to move, and they're trying to disavow any accuracy from the Ouija for that reason. But the spiritualists come back and say to the scientists that it is the spirits who are speaking to you through your own psyche that causes those movements. Yes, you're making the plectrum move. A spirit is not sitting down with his hands making it move. Spirits can't do that. But a spirit can communicate with you, can resonate with you, can speak to you, right? And then the answer comes out in the pendulum, or comes out on the Ouija. That's what I believe. I believe that. Not to disavow science. I do believe, I am a believer of science. I do believe we need to wear masks, social distance. I believe in the science. But I also believe in spirituality. I believe in that. I believe in the spirits speaking to me. I think when I read tarot, and I'm reading the energies, I call them the energies around me when I read tarot cards, who's giving me the ideas? Where are the ideas coming from? Energies? Or is it spirits? Or is it something speaking to my higher self? Yes, to my higher self. Yes, to my psyche, through my psyche. That's what I believe. So I think the same thing with pendulum. Same thing with the pendulum. Give it a try. And one way to try, it's really easy to try with a pendulum, because when you first get a pendulum, you have to have it defined. What's a yes, what's a no. And you're supposed to get the pendulum and hold it absolutely still. Try to get it still as you can. As still as you can. Or just making little tiny circles. And then you say to the pendulum without moving, show me a yes. Show me a yes. Show me a yes. And it's hard because my arm's up in the air. But there it goes very definitely. Back and forth, front to back for me is a yes with this pendulum. And then I say, pendulum. I'm moving so much it's hard. I'm trying to be still. Now it's going in circles. It's waiting for me to tell it. Show me a no. And there's a definite no right away. This pendulum's always on my table, so it kind of knows what I want. But am I making that move? I'm thinking yes. The pendulum goes yes. I'm thinking no. You know, I'm deliberately making it do that. What if I'm just asking it a question? That's why it's important when you're asking it a question, you clear your mind. You clear your mind. And you wait. Clear your mind. And you wait for the pendulum to speak to you. Okay? It should not be my willingness to do this. It should be me receiving the message, which makes it do it. Is that weird? Is that weird? I hope not. I hope not. We'll talk again about it a little more later in another video. If you wish. If you wish. You let me know. Okay? Number 4. Blowing out a candle. Is it okay to blow out a candle, or do I have to snuff it out? This happens all the time. When I'm doing a ritual or a spell, people have a lot of ideas about this. Oh, you can get into a fight about this. If you need to blow it, can you blow it, or can you snuff it? I am a big believer in not using things. I do not like, for instance, to use those mechanical lighters to light my candles. I don't do it. I have one, and in my own practice, in my own rituals, in my own spells, when I do ritual, I usually have a working candle. Used to have one always on my altar table. I call it a working candle. You might have seen in my earlier videos, I talked about it a lot. On my spell table, I keep a working candle, and I will use that lighter or something, or a match or something, to light that candle. And then the rest of the candles that I need to light, I light from the flame of that working candle. That's my personal practice. However, I am in a coven. You know I'm in a coven, and I've also been in other covens. I've been with not covens, but I've also been in other public rituals. And I see both candles being used. I've been one public ritual that we went to regularly all the time, where she had the same practice as we did. She had a working candle and she lit from that, which I really love to see that. Our coven, the coven that I'm in, uses a lighter, uses one of those stick lighters. I don't like it. Excuse me. But I understand it. It's something that is there. It's something that we know works. It's something that we know can be used, okay? The same instance, they use a snuffer to snuff out candles. I'm a believer, when I do spells, if I have to stop the spell and start it again, like if I'm lighting a candle and it's a big candle, a big spell, over a period of a couple of days where I light it and then put the candle out and then light it again the next day, so I don't leave it burning at night or when I'm at home, I blow. Because my power, my breath is my power, my hands are my power, my words are my power. I don't want to give my power over to a snuffer. That's just a little thing that I have in my head. It doesn't mean anything to anybody else. Okay? And we do use a snuffer in the coven, with the coven. And I'm not going to question that. That's fine. We use a coven. But I want to tell you, I've been around a lot of witches in my lifetime. And I've seen both. And I will tell you, I will wager a bet with you. You could take a poll of witches and you would ask them, if you ask them the question, can I blow out a candle or do I need to snuff it out? Most of the witches, true witches, I'm talking about true witches who do ritual all the time. Not that you have to do a ritual to be a witch, but you know what I mean. People who habitually light candles. They're always using candles. 9 times out of 10, they're going to tell you, snuff it. And if you ask them why, they're going to say, because I don't want to get wax all over my tablecloth. Because when you blow out a candle, very often, if you're not careful, with the force of your blowing, wax will scatter, hot wax, onto your tablecloth. And trust me, when you're in a ritual with people, and we're going around to different locations or different homes or whatever to perform the rituals, and we're using different people's tablecloths and different people's candles, it's much safer to snuff. I would never go to somebody's house and blow out their candles, because I wouldn't want to be responsible for their tablecloth. And that's pretty much the truth. That doesn't sound magical at all. It's just practical. It's mostly practical. So whatever matters to you, if you don't care about your breath, using your breath, it's really probably much easier to just snuff it out. Also, you can get some really pretty snuffers, and I have to admit, I have a good many snuffers, because even though, other than for magic purposes, I use snuffers in my home. You know, we use candles all the time on our tables or whatever, or in our rooms, whatever. We use candles a lot, so I have both. I have snuffers, but I like, and I kind of collect snuffers. I've got some pretty cute ones. Okay, so it's preference. It's absolutely preference. Okay, number 5 had to do with tarots. I had some tarot questions, and I lumped this in one because I'm not going to answer tarot questions right now, because I know a lot of people here that watch some of my videos are not tarot people, and I know my tarot people only watch tarot. Some tarot people only watch tarot videos, so they need to be separate. But I will tell you, anybody here who is interested in tarot, I want to remind you that on my channel, most of the videos I've made that have to do with tarot are on my playlist. I try to put them on a playlist so people who just want tarot videos can go to the playlist. But also I want to remind you that I think coming in January, I think it will be January, it might be February, but I think more likely January, we're going to be starting up a new session of the tarot classes that I taught in the summer. I taught 2 sessions, 2 4-week sessions for a total of 8 weeks. One started, as one ended, the next session started. And there are 4 2-hour classes plus a free, we have a Saturday chat to catch up, kind of whatever it is, near the end of the session. So that's 20 hours all told. We offer 20 hours all told if you buy both sessions. And I'm starting to collect names for the session now. I think I might have 1 or 2 people that are returning that did it the first time, that had so much fun, they're coming back. But we have room for anybody. Everybody who wants to come is welcome. And I will be, as we get closer, if you're interested, as we get closer, I'll be giving you more information on that, including how to sign up and when the dates are and how much it costs, etc. But in the meantime, if you're interested in that at all, just shoot me an email and let me know. Send me your name and your email address, and I'll add you to a list. So when I go to notify people, I'll be sure that you get notification. And you can send me the email at goodwife@cox.net. Okay? And for that matter, that's how most of you can get a hold of me if you want me. goodwife@cox.net. Okay. Anyway, if you're interested in tarot, that question will be, I'll answer tarot questions in another video at another time. Okay, number 6 had to do with transferring the images onto the candles. That was very popular. I'm so glad, and it's a new thing for me to do, and I'm excited too. I mean, I've been doing it in a small extent for a long time, but I've never. Now that I can see, I can transfer colored pictures too, colored images. That's really cool. That opens up a whole new world. But I had somebody ask me about if it mattered about the shiny side or the dull side of the tissue paper, which side you used. And I'm sorry if that held you up and you're trying to do it for Halloween or Samhain. I hope it did not. And I have to admit that I never really noticed too much. I mean, I did realize, but I never noticed too much if there's a right side and a wrong side of tissue paper. I don't really know. But if you pay attention to, and realize what it is, what the method is that we're doing when we transfer that image, how we're doing that, I don't think it should matter at all which side. If you had an experience where it does matter, I'd like to know about that. I would maybe experiment with it now that I've been asked the question. Maybe I'll experiment with that and see if I could get a better result one way or the other. But I just haven't even thought about it. What we're actually doing, we're actually not transferring an image at all onto the candle. The image is on the tissue paper as it goes through the, remember we're adhering tissue paper, and I will put that, I'll put that link to the video in case you missed it the first time. But what we're doing is we're actually transferring the image onto tissue paper. The image is on the tissue paper. And then we cut that out. And then we use wax. We use the wax of the wax paper and the wax of the candle. The wax of the candle and the wax of the wax on wax paper, we melt that on to cover that, so that it's, the image is just tissue paper stuck on a candle, but it is covered with wax from the wax paper. So it looks like it's just part of the candle. You don't see it glued on there. It's not like you would take it and glue it on there. It just looks like part of the candle with a design on it. So you see, it doesn't really matter. You could put anything on there. I could put a piece of a newspaper on there. But the tissue paper is, you see through the tissue paper, so it doesn't look like a piece of paper glued onto a candle. It just looks like the image is, because the tissue paper kind of just disappears in the background. You know, it's there, but you don't really notice it. Okay, I hope that's clear. So it's, you're not actually transferring anything onto the candle. It's just a way of adhering that tissue paper to the candle. I hope that's clear. We'll do some more. I'll do another video another time. I'll find some other fun image to put on a candle, and we'll go through it again if it helps. And maybe at that time I can talk about shiny side, dull side, I don't know. I had an interesting question, really interesting question. Somebody asked if we could use the black screen on our iPhones for scrying purposes. Because, you know, scrying mirror, people use a mirror, a scrying mirror. They're usually a dome. My first impression was, well, no, I don't think I like it, because they're, first of all, usually a dome or a black sphere is a curved surface, and that seemed to help. In a black, when I look at myself in the black thing, it's pretty clear. My reflection's pretty clear in there. And you don't want that clear reflection, because you're not looking at the reflection, you're looking at something, you're looking into the mirror. But most importantly for me, first of all, I would never use anything like this in my magic. I would never use anything like a phone or any computer or any kind of a machine, or I don't know what you want to call these things. My grandmother would call this a newfangled contraption. I would never use that in any kind of magic for me. But the reason I would say for everybody, I would say no, because now I'm going to have people who disagree. I know that. But the main reason I would say is because if you're going to do scrying, scrying is a ritual. Scrying do any kind of scrying, whether it's in a flame or in water or in steam or in, you know, a scrying mirror, or however you do it, it's actually kind of it's a ritual. I would consider it a ritual. Sometimes it is a part of a ritual, but even when it's not, and by that, and it's a. Before I do it, I would follow a certain protocol. I would smudge an area. I would have protection. I would do all kinds of things like that. I would get rid of distractions. It's usually done in the dark. There's no lights on. It's just candlelight. But also there's a lot of things that go with it. Like, we don't, when people that have a witch's mirror, a black mirror for scrying, or a black sphere, for like a crystal ball, you would call it a crystal ball, but black, a black sphere, is usually kept covered or kept hidden in a bag. It's not to be looked at by anybody other than the person who's using it, and it should not be looked at for other purposes. It's specific. It's a magical tool. It's the same thing as I would say your athame. We all have athames, most of us, and our athame is not a knife that's used to cut. You wouldn't cut with an athame. It's used for. We make circles with it. It's like an extension of our hand. It's like a magic wand kind of thing. It's a tool that you use for, we cast circles, or we draw on the ground with it, or there's things you do with it. You don't cut with it. If you need a knife to cut, a witch's knife or tool to cut would be a bowline, called a bowline, or just a knife. But it's just a separate knife. An athame you put aside just for magical purposes as a magical tool, and a scrying mirror or scrying surface is a magical tool. There's nothing magical about this at all. People take these in the bathroom, like I don't. Like that's hideous to me. But they do. Everybody's touching them, and there's just nothing magical about it. So I would say, people, you can hate on me, but I would say no. Sounds like it would work. It might work, but no. Okay. Catching glimpses. I love that subject, catching glimpses. A wonderful question, 2 questions asked by somebody who said, yes, we can develop it, because I talked about how we can practice and maybe get better at catching glimpses of spirits or whatever. But they said children can see things without practice. I know that's true. Yes, it is true. I believe that 100%. But I think what happens with children is children are taught to not. Children start out seeing things, right? And that's sort of that's actually a really good theme of a lot of horror movies, where children tend to tell you there's a monster in the bed, and people go, oh, there's no monster in your bed, just go to sleep, forget about it. And then the monster comes out under the bed and, eats the child or whatever. Like in Poltergeist, remember when the poor little boy was asleep and the scary tree was outside the window, and all at once the scary tree was breaking through the glass and grabbing him? That horror movies, that's great in a horror movie. But in real life, yes, I think it's true. We say to children all the time, we might not say you don't see anything, but we sort of teach them that there's nothing there. If we can't see it, it's not there. We talk everything they talk to make believe. My middle daughter, for years she had an imaginary friend, first of all, and she also talked to trees. She really talked to trees. She would have see her in the yard, just talking up to the tree, talking to it, just like it was a person. Fortunately, we knew not to squelch that. I don't think she talks to trees anymore, but she's very close to nature and very, I think she believes in the magical world of trees. I think she does. But at any rate, we let that go, because who were we to judge if there was somebody there or not? I mean, we're not going to judge it. But you know what I mean? Most of us are taught when we're growing up, as we get older, that we only believe what we can see. If you can't see it, it's just really not there. And even if we're not taught that, children kind of forget it because other people don't see it. If a child sees something, maybe, or he'll hear something, and no adult acknowledges being able to hear it or see it, the child will sooner or later just kind of decide that maybe it was nothing as they get older. That's a part of maturing, which is kind of pathetic, but I think it's kind of true. I think that kind of happens. So I'm not sure. I'm really not sure about that. But I do know as people age, You know, they do a lot of studies with older people as they get maybe even dementia, particularly, that, you know, they start developing traits that they had when they were younger. And a lot of them, you know, are even in a different time than we're in. They're able to relive memories from past times and hear conversations from past times. I watched the most fantastic video somebody shared on Facebook that was a woman who had suffered from Alzheimer's or dementia, I'm not sure, Alzheimer's perhaps, who was, she was Asian and she was so crippled and just completely really out of it. And they started playing Swan Lake, the music from Swan Lake, and she was a prima ballerina. She was a very accomplished ballet dancer. And when she recognized the music, all of a sudden she started just the dance, and they kept showing glimpses of her dancing and as a young person dancing and her dancing. Every movement and her facial expression changed, and it was amazing. She was reliving that exact moment. So she's able to see, I think, as we age and start to becoming more childlike, perhaps some of those abilities that we have forgotten about, that becomes a reality for some of us. Maybe. I hope so. That's something to look forward to, isn't it? Cats. Can cats see fairies? Can cats see fairies? A lot of people think they can. I do know, you know, I have had cats. I've had many, many cats. We've had so many cats in our life, married life. I do know that, you know, there's not, I don't know if they see with their eyes, but they certainly know when things are there. They are aware, whether they hear or smell or sense in other ways. You know, we can see, even people can see, some people don't see with their eyes, they see with their ears, or they see with their smell, sense of smell, or they see with their, you know, there's a lot of ways of knowing things around us other than just seeing with our eyes. Animals, they think of all kinds, absolutely no. My dogs and cats, for instance, we live in California, they know when an earthquake is coming. I know an earthquake is coming by watching my dogs or watching my cats particularly. Before we feel it, they feel it. So I just think, you know, cats are very sensitive things. And you see cats all the time looking, and what are they looking at? And there's really nothing, we can't see what they're looking at, but they absolutely are looking at something. So I would say to the person asking, yes, I think they can. I think they probably can. Maybe not all of them, like not all people can communicate with spirits or whatever. Maybe not all cats can, but I think they have some kind of an ability that we do not have that makes it maybe easier for them. Okay, number 9, I just have 2 left. I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, but number 9, someone said they were trying to communicate with their grandmother, but they lived close to a cemetery, and they were worried that the spirits from the cemetery might interfere in some way. I absolutely would agree. I would worry about that too, depending on your proximity. If you're right next door, of course, I would really worry about it maybe. Now knowing, and I also want to make clear, I don't want you to think, whoever answered this question, that, oh, drat, now I have to wait until the next time the veil is in to communicate with their grandmother. No, you do not. But if you are waiting, the next time is Beltane. Remember, at Beltane, just like at Samhain, Beltane, the veil is thin as well. And I would try again at Beltane for sure, if you didn't have any successes this time. Okay, so it's not, you don't have to wait too long. We just have to wait till the beginning of May. But you can try to communicate with your grandmother at any time. But before I did that, if you were close to the cemetery, what I mean by that is being close to a cemetery, the other spirits that may be at the cemetery maybe are not as strong or have the abilities to come to interfere that they have at the time when the veil is thin. So where it might be harder for you to communicate with your grandmother, at other times it might be harder for them to interfere as well. So that could work in your favor or not, I'm not sure. But at any rate, again, I would love to see somebody chime in on this who knows a little more about it. Maybe Jen, if she's ever watches this, maybe she will. I have not had time to get in touch with her to ask her. But I have it on my list of things to do. But anyway, at any rate, she asked if she should do protection or say something or do something. Well, first of all, absolutely yes, yes, yes. Before you do anything, think about, cleansing your space from things that don't belong there. Very simple to do with sage or with a lot of incenses, but a lot of herbs you can burn, or you can use salt. You can use make a misting spray. You can use there's a lot of things you can do. Airing out the room, opening the windows, turn on fans, making noise in the room. I'm getting to that. Let me talk a minute. But anyway, cleanse yourself, and yes, do yourself. Be specific in your statement of who you were trying to contact. Specifically, all others, need not apply. Putting your protection up. Yes, always putting your protection up. Always. In a space when you're talking to anybody in the spirit world, you have protection up. It's kind of misleading, because if you would go to a medium or a psychic or somebody, they might not be so obvious what they're putting protections up. But trust me, you come here in my house, in my parlor, and sit across the table from me and have a tarot reading. You better believe this room is cleansed and purified and protected out the yazoo. I mean, seriously, it's like, that's because I do these kind of things. I'm opening myself up for readings all the time in here, or spell work all the time in here. So I have protection in place everywhere. I'm constantly smudging and constantly, I have stuff hanging here, and it's right. So, but if it's something you just do occasionally, you want to protect yourself. You want to do that. So you want to, and by that way, you're also claiming your turf. This is my turf. Everybody else get out. Okay, set up your boundaries. Also, do not attempt to do anything like that when you're, just like with the Ouija board. I said, if you're sick or you're stressed or you're worried or you're tired or whatever, don't attempt it. Do not attempt it. Do it only when you're feeling strong, healthy, grounded. Okay. And also, since it's harder when the veil is not thin, I would suggest you amplify your attractions for your grandmother. What does she like? If she likes certain fragrances, making sure those are very strong in the room. If she likes certain kinds of music, play that music really loudly if you can in the room, or something. So that if there's other things around, or break up any areas. If you can feel like in corners, if there's any hidden areas where something could lurk, something could be there, break it up. Break it up. Put wind chimes, or put, go around and break up this, with sound. Bang a drum, or rattles, or tambourines, or bells, ring bells, or whatever, clearing away all your corners, making sure there's no place for people to lurk. Okay, and then of course remembering your words are your words. Your powers are in your words. Your power is in your words. So state clearly that nobody else is here, invited here. Nobody else is welcome. And then, of course, if you are able to communicate with your grandmother, make sure you tell her goodbye. You need to tell her goodbye. She can't stay there. You don't want your grandmother being stuck in your room. You just don't want that. As much as how lovely it sounds, it's not lovely. Okay. Again, somebody like Jen or somebody else maybe could give us some more information. That's just my opinions. The last question, I had a couple of people ask me about, could I speak more about what should be happening in the southern hemisphere? And I have to say, I really am sensitive. I hope I did not give the impression that I was insensitive to the fact that while we were celebrating Samhain, our friends in the southern hemisphere were not celebrating Samhain. They would be celebrating Beltane. And again, anything that I spoke to about the spirits at Samhain, the veil being thin, is also true for Beltane. Beltane is perhaps a better time, I think, for communicating with fairies, for instance. I tend to do that outside, out of doors, communicate with fairies, do a lot of stuff outside for Beltane. while in Samhain we're indoors. But other than that, things are kind of the same. Equinoxes, we're celebrating the, when we just had Mabel on the autumn equinox, in the our friends in the southern hemisphere, we're celebrating the spring equinox. Okay, at Ostara, okay? So when we talk about getting into balance, it's so important to getting into balance, but we're getting in balance, ready to greet the darkness, and they were coming back into the light. So it's a little different, there's a little twist that way, okay? Solstices, again with the solstices, the same thing, you know, summer solstice, winter solstice. We still have the energy of the solstice the same, but it's the energy going into what direction that is what's sort of happening. So if you're watching me, thank you so much in the southern hemisphere. I'm not trying to disregard anything but what's happening with you. I just forget to mention that. But you know, anytime I do have videos on Beltane specific, anything, I'm talking about Beltane when you were celebrating Samhain. So maybe now you could go in my list here of videos and maybe see some things particular to Beltane that would apply to you. I have to tell you, two people that I watched that I admire so much, who are so truly magical. I watched her for the first time on YouTube, and neither of them seem to be active here. One, my absolute favorite, this person is such a wonderful spirit, is Alvine Green, and she's such a precious spirit. She means the world to me. I do see her on Instagram, and I do see her on Facebook. So I do, she's not gone from us. But she doesn't seem to have come, she seems to be gone from YouTube, at least for now. And I miss her. I miss her a lot, but I'm happy that I see her. But she and Crimson Fire, also Crimson Fire. Crimson Fire is not, again, not very active. I know she's busy with a lot of other things. So anyway, they're two wonderful people that I think they might have their old videos up, I'm not sure. That those of you who are in the southern hemisphere, you might want to check out some of their older videos and then maybe look for them in some of these other venues for social media. Okay. All right, I seem to have talked a long time. I didn't mean to do that. But I wanted to try to answer the questions as good as I can, as well as I could, as thoroughly as I could. I have a big list of videos that I am, potential videos that I'm going to be, that are coming up in my future. I don't know if I have a list in there or not, I'm looking. A lot of the video ideas came from you, and some of them coming up. Again, if you have any suggestions for some videos, you can, of course, shoot me an email at goodwife@cox.net, or you can just leave some comments for me, and I'll be happy to consider any subject. I have a list, a big long list already, but I'll add to it maybe. And I'm really trying. I'm not going to be making 30 videos in 30 days, but I'm really making a sincere effort now. I'm going to come back on here, try to be as regular as I can be. Hopefully get out like 2 or 3 a week. At least 2, maybe 2 or 3 a week, because I just want to be sure that I'm very appreciative of those of you who have stuck by me and subscribed to me, and I really appreciate that. But if I don't have something for you to offer, there's no reason for you to stay. So, and I realize that. So, I'll try to be a little better. I'll try to be a little better. Okay, thank you so much for stopping by with me today. I appreciate you so much. I'm Rebecca, and as always, I send you blessings.